Hello everyone, I'm back. Yay! I still haven't retrieved all the data off of my hard drive, and I apologize for all of the delays and so forth. What we're going to be doing, what I'm going to ask you to do is, with this video, there will be some accompanying data online in Blackboard. It'll be in the assignment and data section, but it won't be called assignment because this is not anything you need to turn in. I don't want you to get too caught up and feel like you've run behind, but I would like you to go through this little exercise. We'll call it an exercise. It's not to be turned in. And in this exercise, I want to show you some basic location analysis using geoprocessing skills. Now, geoprocessing skills are those skills that are discussed in the second part of Chapter 6. The first part, we talk about queries, the spatial query, and the attribute query. The second part, we talk about geoprocessing. And so in this example, this guided example that you can do on your own, we'll go over some of those geoprocessing basics. I'm going to show you a little mini location analysis exercise, not real complex, where we will use the geoprocessing skills buffering, intersection, and erase. So I've listed it up here on this little sticky note that's above here. Buffering, intersection, and erase. I'm also going to show you what union and clip does, just so you can see what they do. I don't have a practical example that uses those without getting too terribly complex, but I will show you union and clip. These are some of the most common geoprocessing tools that are out there. So what I did was, when I realized my data, I only got about half the data off my hard drive, I realized this is not going to do. I'm going to waste my time and your time trying to find the original assignment and trying to get that hard drive to work. I decided I'm just going to go out and download some data from a regional data source and build a new thing from scratch. Now, this is, like I said, it's not very complex, and I didn't really think I had time to type everything up in an assignment, so I decided let's do this as I would in a regular class, in a regular on-campus brick-and-mortar classroom building. I do this a lot. I do guided practice with students where we all work through something together, with me leading the example and others following along. It's kind of a Pied Piper sort of thing. The cool thing about it is, with this being on video, you can follow along with me and stop the video if you miss a step and go back and look at it. In the classroom, everybody has to stop, and I have to go back and to a certain point and do it again, and it can take, you can customize this for your own use, I guess is what I'm trying to say. All right, so let's get back to this. Like I said, I don't want to waste any more time than I've already done this week. We're doing some geoprocessing basics using the buffer, intersection, and erase tools. And here's my criteria over here. I want to purchase some land, and I want that land to be within 2 miles of an existing well, and within 2 miles of a city with less than 2,000 population. I've gotten tired of the traffic and everything, but I would like to be near a gas station. I don't want to be too far away from a gas station and maybe a little small grocery store or something like that. So I can usually get that with the small town. And I want to be away from anything larger than 5,000. Maybe I'm becoming a hermit. And finally, I want to be above the Trinity Aquifer. Okay, so we're going to use this criteria, and this is very similar to what you might find yourself working on with a small location analysis problem. So we're going to take this criteria, and we're going to use geoprocessing tools to help us find where we want to locate this land. Okay, I'm going to move my little sticky note out of the way for now, and move this other little sticky note out of the way. And I am going to, if you haven't done this already, I want you to open up wellsandplaces.mxd. That should be in the download. It should have all the data already loaded into it. If not, then the data that you would need to load would be deep wells, cities less than 2K, cities of greater than 2K, aquifers, and CapCog. Now, CapCog, just so you can see what that is, these are the counties. I think it's how many counties? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 counties in the Central Texas region. I have set my symbology to this little circle with a dot in it. I've got the green star for my cities of less than 2K. I've got a red diamond set at 6 point. These both are set at, I think all of these are set at 6 points. In size, I've got my aquifer. I have gone through for symbology. I right click, go to properties, and I use the aquifer name for my field, and I just choose a color ramp that's going to give me plenty of uniqueness between the colors. That's not always how you want to set your color ramp, but in this case, we don't have any kind of ranking system by color or anything like that, and I picked things that would stand out so I could easily distinguish. There would be no confusion between the Edwards aquifer and the Edwards Trinity because their colors are so different. So I did that. I set that as such. And I made my CapCog background a color that's not going to be confused with anything else that's sitting on top of it. Now, one thing I want to show you with the deep wells, if you are having to load the data yourself, or if you would like to load the data yourself, double click on the little dot there, and my symbol selector comes up, and I'll show you what I did, where I got the little dot. That's a symbol for well. That's a symbol for personal well. You go into style references. This is something handy for you to use in the future. Go into style references and look at all these different sorts of styles that you can use. I selected environmental because I knew that that's where the those symbols are for wells and that sort of thing. But if you look at all these other things here, civic, I'll just click civic on here so you can see what sort of things are available. When you add styles to this, you get all sorts of neat little things. You campground, different size cars. You get a symbol for cemetery, child care facility. It looks like a little building block. Reading glasses. I think that's what I need improvement on. Schools, hiking trails, all kinds of things. Grocery store, and hadn't seen that one before. Anyway, so I selected environmental, which comes up as you move through this. There's so many things in that civic one and that in environmental that it takes a while to go through there. But there is, now I'm in environmental, there is one for wells. Wells, we've got wells drilled private. I just chose that one because that one, if I purchase this property, that will be a privately drilled well. All right. Okay, go back to my criteria. I've got all my data in place. I go back to my criteria, and I want to purchase land within 2 miles of an existing well. Within 2 miles of a city of less than 2,000 population, and a minimum of 10 miles away from the city of greater than 5,000. I also want it to be above the Trinity Aquifer. I just do that one in for fun. All right, so the first step in this is called buffering, or making a buffer. Now, a buffer is a set distance around either a specific point. In this case, it will be a point, a line, or a polygon. And from that point, line, or polygon, we go out a set distance, and we create a new layer showing everything that would be within a, let's say, 2 miles from an existing well. All right, let me show you how to do that. So I go into geoprocessing and I click buffer. This is one way to do this. I'll show you another way to do this in a moment. So the buffer menu pops up. We go to input feature. I want to know about the wells. I want my buffer drawn around the wells. So I go here, and it's called deep wells in this case. So I double click deep wells, and I wait until it shows up in here. Now I want you to carefully look at this. I want you to carefully examine this. This will go into your default. Everybody's got something called a default geodatabase. That's what everything gets thrown into unless you tell it to go someplace else. I'm going to leave mine in my default. You don't do this. Go ahead. For you, I suggest that you place this in your where did I put it? Oh, it's in mine's in Arc Lessons. I suggest you put it in your well lock and geodatabase, which stands for Well Location Analysis Geodatabase. That's where I suggest that you put it. I'm not going to put it in there because if I have to reload that on the web, then you'll be getting, your assignment or your exercise done for you. It will already be completed. So I don't want decimal degrees. The reason decimal degrees comes up is because we are set up in the geographic coordinate system. This whole map and all the layers are set up in geographic coordinate system. And so it's decimal degrees down here, so it naturally defaults to decimal degrees. That's kind of weird because decimal degrees is not really a linear measurement. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If I told you to go out and measure 13 decimal degrees from this well, that doesn't tell you anything. It's going to be a different distance in Montana than it would be in Texas. So it doesn't make sense to do this in decimal degrees. So we're going to do miles because that's the criteria. So that's my linear unit. We're not going to do any of this extra work down here, this more advanced stuff. This is your basic buffer. And I'm going to say OK. And that's funny because I forgot to type in the number 2. Okay, now we do this. And look at what it did. Look what's going to happen. It's going to be weird because I didn't change it back to miles. See, I do this all the time. These are easy mistakes to make. Easy mistakes to make, and we wait. Now, one thing you'll notice when you do a buffer, you'll see this thing that says buffer, 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 buffer. Unfortunately, that's kind of inconsistent. ArcMap doesn't always show you when the process is happening. Sometimes you don't see anything down here at the bottom where I'm showing you the buffer, 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 and you just have to mysteriously hope that it does what you want it to do. And it will take a while. There's a lot of wells on there. The larger the field, now see this. I guess I'm glad I did this because this is why I said it doesn't make sense. We're going to zoom to this layer. Remember, I did this in decimal degrees by mistake. Look at that. Isn't it insane? So decimal degrees make no sense when we're dealing with linear measurement because it's not really a linear measure. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that. Bye-bye buffer. Bye-bye ugly buffer. All right, I'm going to zoom back into this area. Remember, you can do this just by clicking on there and going to zoom to layer. All right, we're going to try this again. And often, when my first year of teaching GIS, I had a student ask me, how is it that you know how to do this? How do you automatically know where to go and what button to push and when to do this and what? It's because I made so many mistakes in my first year. They would say, you must have been doing this for a long time. No, I've only been doing this for a year. I've just made so many mistakes. I know how to correct them now. So I've definitely learned from experience. All right, so I'm going to do it right this time. I'm going to put the number 2 in there. And then decimal degrees will no longer be decimal degrees. It will be miles. And now, through the magic of electrons, we're going to let this run. And you might want to give it a name that makes sense. I just went with the default name. You might want to call this Wells buffer or just Wells 2-mile well buffer. It will give you a default name. It will say something to the effect of buffer of deep wells or deep well buffer or something like that. That works for this one, but sometimes when you get really long names, it gets kind of strange. Another thing to let you know about, sometimes when you are when you're doing some geoprocessing and you give it a new location and name, you put it in a different folder and you give it a different name, sometimes it doesn't like that, and sometimes you just have to let it take the name that it wants to give it and then change the name later. Other times you can just try that name again, and it will work the second time. All right, so now I want you to see what we've got here. Here's our wells, and what we see here, I'm just going to zoom into this well here. This pink circle around this little tiny dot in the middle, that should measure out to be 2 miles. Now I'm going to get my little measuring tool down here. I'm going to click right here in the center and go out to the edge, and it tells me up here that's in decimal degrees. So I need to change this to distance and miles, and let me clear that. You'll notice it gives segments and lengths on here. It's changing every time I move that. So as I go back to here, you'll see I haven't gotten it exactly in the right place, but it says 2.07 miles from the middle to the edge. Now there's something else you may notice about this, is that let me get rid of my little measuring tool. From the top to the center and from the center to the side, on your screen, does it look a little like an egg? Does it look a little flatter here from the top to the bottom and elongated in the middle? That goes back to this projection issue, the projection and coordinate system issue that we studied earlier. What's going on there is, because decimal degrees are not measured, like I said, it's not a good linear measurement. If you want these to look like circles instead of these elongated blobs, there's a trick to this. We change this to we'll take it to a regional coordinate system. Now, again, we're coming back to coordinate systems after we've had some more experience, and you get to see more things like this go on. Then it'll make more sense. But we click on this thing that says layers right here. This is actually called a data frame. When you see this little stack of layers right there above your actual layers, above your geodatabases and your shapefiles and stuff, this is called a data frame. We can change the properties of the data frame. We don't change anybody else's data. We don't change the projection or the coordinate system of any of the actual layers, but we're changing it for the data frame itself. What's meant by data frame is what's contained in this area here, the background or the base. It was as if you were as if this were some sort of table that we were drawing the map on. Okay, so let's go to coordinate system. We're going to go to a regional coordinate system instead of a geographic coordinate system. I'm going to collapse geographic coordinate system and go to projected coordinate system. Projected means we've taken the round Earth and we are projecting it onto a flat plane. I like UTM, so I'm going to go to UTM NAD 1983. That's North American datum. We're looking at the actual the shape of the Earth. And in Central Texas, we are in Zone 14 North. So I'm going to click on 14 North and say OK. And after my little round thing finishes spinning, look, now we have, instead of this egg-shaped blob, now we have a circle. So it's nice to have this opportunity to show you some other things that projections and coordinate systems do. All right, back to, I want to zoom back out to my counties, the 10 county area. So I can right-click CapCog and go to zoom to layer, and that kicks me back out there. All right, so all of that for the buffer. Actually, that wasn't all for the buffer, but we did a few other things as well. So there's the first step. We get our buffer of my 2-mile buffer around the wells. So now I've got that area identified. It's like, okay, I know that my land should be somewhere in one of these buffers. But I also want it to be within 2 miles of a city of less than 2K. That means one of my green stars. So I need to find areas that satisfy both. It's got to be within that distance of the wells and within that distance of the city. So what am I going to do? Think to yourself, what do I do? See if you can figure it out before I show you what to do. Where to go. We're going to create a buffer. Where did you see we could go to create the buffer? And how to fill in the blanks for that buffer. Okay, so by now you've had a chance to go to geoprocessing, click on buffer, and this screen comes up. Instead of being deep wells, my new buffer will be around cities of less than 2K. And again, you will want to put this in your well lock and geodatabase instead of your default geodatabase. So cities of less than 2K, I want to say buffer. And if you let it name it itself, it's going to create this name right here. Cities less than 2K buffer 2 or buffer 1. I'm going to type that in the wrong place. Yeah. See, it doesn't like me now. Click back on that. I accidentally started typing that in the wrong line. We can go here, click on there. This is the better way to do it. Click on your well lock analysis. I'm not going to do that. But that would be where you want to go. And then I'll just show you really quickly. I won't hit yes. You go here, and then you type the name, what you want it to be. Buffer city 2K or less than 2K. It's still kind of a long name, but you get the idea. I'm not going to do that again because I want my stuff to go into my default because I don't want to save it in here. All right, so I'm letting it go to my default. I am going to make that a 2-mile buffer. This time it automatically came up to meters because I changed the projection. And then I say okay, and then we wait. Shouldn't have to wait as long as we did before because there's not as many cities as there are wells. Again, when you run a buffer, you'll see this buffer. And so while we're waiting, I want to discuss some of the common mistakes people make, and you saw them. One is to forget to change your linear unit to miles or meters or kilometers or whatever it is you want that to be in. Another mistake is letting it go to the wrong geodatabase or the wrong location. You may want to give it a more meaningful name. Okay, so now I have my buffers here, and these are around the cities, the green stars. I'm going to zoom in and show you the areas that we'll be looking for. We are looking for, zoom in here. I'm going to change the color of this so that you can see that a little bit. Oh, that doesn't show up well at all. Let's make it really kind of obnoxious. We'll make it this crazy gold color. Now you can see. All right, so the area that we want, see, if I pick some property over here, right in here, then I'm within my city, but I'm not within the zone I want with the well. So the only criteria that meets that is this area here where the two have in common. I'm going to pull this up. Oh, I can't do that right now. Oh, this may happen to you. You may find yourself trying to move layers up and down and above. Like I want to move my deep wells buffer above this, and I can't. That's because I'm in the source list. I have to go to the ordered layers or the drawing ordered list, and I can pull this down into here, and you can see that this area right here is what they have in common. Okay, so intersection. That's what intersection does. Intersection will give me all the areas that these two share that are in common with each other. So it's going to give me all the areas common to both the buffer around the city and the buffer around the well. It won't give me the areas that are not in there. So this part here, this yellow part that you see here, move that out of the way, that will be kicked out. Everything beyond, put that there, everything beyond the yellow in this buffer will be kicked out, and what's going to be left will be this little area that they both have in common, kind of like a Venn diagram. So to do that, we go to geoprocessing, intersect, and I want this. We'll put in everything we want to show intersecting. We have two different things, both of the buffers, the deep well buffer and the cities with less than 2K buffer. So I click on deep well buffer, then it drops it down in here, and now I'm going to click on cities with less than 2K buffer, and notice it drops down in there. Again, I'm going to allow this to go to my default geodatabase, and I'm going to let it keep the name that it wants to give it. You will want to go to the well lock and type in the name that you want this to become. You might call it desired intersection, desired land location. So, like I said, I'm not going to do that because I don't want it to accidentally end up in the data that you end up with, that you download. So I'm done there. We're going to keep everything else default and let this run, because this is the basic intersection activity. And notice again, you see intersect, 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 and so that keeps going. This is different. You may be asking yourself, well, what's so different about this than it is than the select by location? Select by location, if I said take this buffer, show me all the buffers, the 2 mile buffers around the cities that intersect with the 2 mile buffer around the wells, I would get all the ones that intersect, all the ones that touch it, and I'd get all of the area. I wouldn't get into just the common area. Now look, see what we've got. Here's our common area. I'm going to turn off the city buffer and the deep well buffer, and as I back up, let's go back and do this again. Right click, zoom to layer, and you'll notice I'm going to also turn off the wells because at this point they're a little bit annoying. You'll notice what you've got here. I'm going to turn off the aquifer too. And look at this. Look at all of these. Every one of these lines through here is a different record. I want you to see how many records we've got. So this is my intersect. Let's make this a color that makes sense. This is my deep. It's going to say deep wells buffer intersect. Right, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to make it. Oh, well, let's make it purple. And it doesn't show the. Let's not do that. So let's give it the outline color. Let's make it black. Okay, now we should be able to see those lines. Yes. So you see all of these lines? Each one of these different segments here will be a different record. Let's look at the table. And 7,500 records. So if I, just so you see this, I'm going to select one of these. That selects that one area. I can go show only the selected ones, and wow, it shows me a few more than just that. But you can see how many more records we end up with as a result of all of those buffers being intersected together. Okay, so let me move that out of the way. I'm going to unselect, and we'll zoom back out to the CapCog area. And so there's here's the areas that I know that I want. But there's some other things that I might not want. I don't want to be within 2 miles of a city. So I'm going to sign off for this one. This is the end of part 1. And then we'll have part 2 that'll show you how we narrow this down to find the areas that we want. Alrighty, we'll see you in part 2.